From the creators of Relevant Magazine, this is the Relevant Podcast.
Every time I think that I've been taking the steps, you end up mad at me for making a mess. I can't understand, but you don't understand me, baby. And every day I wake up and I make money for myself, and though we share that you know that I don't need your help. Do you understand? You don't understand.
It's Friday, March 6th. The year is 2020, and you're listening to the Relevant Podcast. My name is Tyler Huckabee. I am coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Meanwhile, down there in Orlando, Florida, he is in charge of getting the Tulsi Gabbard campaign back on track. It's our friend Chandler Strang.
Hello.
Meanwhile,
Chandler, keep putting W's on the board.
Rack him up and knock him down. That's the illustrious producer Chandler Strangway up there in Loveland, Virginia. He just got finished washing his hands for the 6th time this morning. It's our friend Jesse Carey.
A solid elbow bump to you, my friend.
And the skeleton crew this morning, Jesse. I know that you're a man. You're a serious man.
I am.
You're a gentleman.
Very.
You have I would say your inner dial is attuned to the severity of global situations.
It is.
With unfailing accuracy. So tell the people, how serious are you taking the CDC recommendations about hand washing and face touching and all that stuff right now?
Hey, man. Well, in all seriousness, I do think, I do think a lot of the concerns for the coronavirus, are, some of them are not in line with like the reality of like the severity. Like, I think there's a lot of fear mongering. I understand that. Sure. But in all seriousness, people should wash their hands a lot during the day, because if you're listening to this, you should do that anyway. Yeah. But the reality of it is too, like the people who are most vulnerable to this are people that are, a bit older, maybe have compromised immune systems.
Folks. Yeah.
So even if people listening to this are kind of in a range where you're not really in danger of if you somehow did get contract this virus, most likely you'll recover, statistically, but it's the right thing to do to protect people who may not be as healthy. So everyone should be washing their hands. Everyone should be it's better to be cautious in a situation. That's my take. What about yours, Tyler?
Well, I think you're right. And I think the reason that you're especially attuned to some of the science here today is because of the guest that we're having on.
That's
later
right.
In the program today. It is a little bit of skeleton crew today. It's just me, Jesse, but we got a special treat for you coming up. We are joined by a gentleman who I think people are going to be very familiar with. Maybe not speaking in on this lane in particular, but we were definitely interested to hear his thoughts from the host of Cosmos, one of the most famous scientists probably in pop culture right now, Mr. Neil Degrasse Tyson. Going to be joining us. Jesse, you had quite a conversation.
It was quite a conversation. We're going to play it pretty much in its entirety later. But there's been some dispute about how this interview actually.
That's true.
Actually,
that's true. Lots of takes
because
around the office.
So I wasn't expecting before the interview with Neil Degrasse Tyson, which you'll hear later. I told Tyler there are probably two things that if Neil Degrasse Tyson is stopped in the street and asked every day, he probably hears the same things every day. People want to ask him about God and faith, and people want to ask him about aliens. Right? Am I wrong about that? Like, I feel like
those are probably on the top 10. I feel like those are top 10 questions.
Chandler,
is there a God?
Yeah.
And are there such thing as aliens?
Chandler, if you were switch places with me and you had the interview with Neil Degrasse Tyson, what would be one thing? If you could ask him anything, what would it be? It would probably be about aliens.
I mean, why not? Sure.
You lost your chance. You lost your chance. You could ask him anything and you lost your chance, Chandler. It would have been aliens. Don't deny yourself.
Okay.
I knew going into this interview, and let me say this, as you'll hear later, it was a really fun conversation. Cosmos is a really great show. It debuts, I want to plug it right now, debuts Monday night on Nat Geo. People should check it out, National Geographic Channel. It's the third season of the reboot of Carl Sagan's series. It's called Possible Worlds. So I told Tyler before, I definitely have to ask the faith question. I have to ask him about the tensions with faith and science. That's kind of our beat, right? But I was like, Tyler, if there's enough time, I'm going to squeeze in a question about aliens. I did not expect the conversation to get so heated. So much so that I kind of felt like Neil deGrasse Tyson was yelling at me. Now, Tyler, you've heard a clip of this.
I listened to it. I'm on your side.
And I felt like I'm getting
I'm
yelled
on your
at.
side.
I was literally getting
Team Jesse.
yelled at by one of the great scientists of our time. Mm-hmm. And, we made up. It was fine. But I wasn't used to getting yelled at like that, especially now. Neil deGrasse Tyson is not someone you want yelling at me. Now, Chandler, you cut some clips and you dispute whether he was yelling at me or he was just being very emphatic, right?
Yeah. You told me last night that you got yelled at because it was shortly after you had this interview. And so I'm expecting, full on voice raised. I think he was just kind of talking to you like you're kind of an idiot for asking that question.
Well, that's not disputed. He was definitely talking like I was an idiot for asking those questions.
Maybe we have different. Maybe we have different standards.
I felt like I was not just getting talked at like an idiot because honestly, I can be pretty idiotic sometimes, and I'm on Team Neil here, not Team Jesse. Like we've
all yelled at Jesse.
Yeah, I've been yelled at by plenty of times. So here's what I was going to save this till later. Why don't we do this right at the top of the show, guys? Why don't we just do it?
We're just going to get it out of the way.
Let's do it now. What, Chandler? Are you cool with that? Why don't we? We're going to play the full interview later. But so we did the interview, and I want people to make the determination: am I being yelled at by Neil deGrasse Tyson? Okay, am I getting yelled at by the host of Cosmos,
nation's foremost astrophysicist?
So I'm going to set the context. At the point of these clips you're about to hear, I had been talking with him for about 20 minutes at this point. And I asked him what I felt like was a fair question. I was like, look, there are these, clips going around that are apparently from the U.S. military, that show kind of these fuzzy, kind of flying objects. We can't really tell what they are. Given that a lot of people are really curious about aliens, I asked him, like, does he think it's reasonable that we will encounter intelligent life from another planet in our lifetime? He gave a very long answer, but at some point it kind of got amped up. Chandler, why don't you play clip number 1 for us?
I'm not going to predict for you when that will happen. I can't.
Yeah.
All I can say is it'd be really fun if it did happen, and we want to be ready for it if it does. And with regard to the fuzzy video that the military shows every now and then, do you realize more than 1 billion photos and videos are uploaded to the internet every day? That if you are mishandled by a police officer, minutes later on the internet, there's 7 different camera angles of that. Okay?
Yeah.
If anyone saw an alien, do you think that would go unphotographed, unvideoed? You don't think that would not go viral by now? Do you think aliens are only manifesting themselves to humans, to the U.S. military by fuzzy video? Do you think that's the goal of the aliens?
I see. It just sounds like he's talking to you like you're an idiot.
I think the escalation.
So you think you don't think it's anger? Okay. You think it's just I'm talking to an idiot here?
Yeah.
And I have to speak loudly and slowly.
Do you really think that? I don't know how many times you said that, but do you really think that?
Okay.
And you weren't even I feel like he was talking to you. I mentioned this to you, Jesse. Like you were the one bringing him this video on a phone. Like you had dug up a VHS tape or something like that.
I didn't say verify if this is an alien. I just said is an alien. I just felt like I got a little heated there. And then I tried. Okay. So he continued to answer the question. And guys, I'm a master at disarming situations of tension by breaking the ice. And
Born peacemaker.
I've had people yell at me many times and I say something and get them to stop yelling at me. Chandler, play clip number 2 and see how I resolve this for everyone.
If you have eyewitness testimony, presumably you'll have iPhone testimony, but you don't.
Yeah.
Where is it in the billion photos every day?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for, and it's not there.
It is weird that they
try to get it all in your face.
No. You make a good point. It is weird that they only visit people who don't have their iPhone handy at the moment. Like, that's a weird pattern. Yeah.
It's a weird pattern, right?
So we heard
Look
what
at that.
I think he recognized. He came in a little hot there. I mean, he apologized, and I said
With
one of my
grace
signature
and
one-liners, but it just the alien thing got more heated than I was expecting.
I think you're right. I think that the escalation compared to the tone, which listeners will hear, the rest of the conversation was very friendly, lots of back and forth.
Yeah.
He didn't go off on any from what I heard, any long heated tangents or rants with you about anything else. And then this escalated a lot. And I mean, I think he raises a good point. That is a good point. That is a very valid.
All his points are perfect.
He's a smart guy. Of course, his point is good. All his
points are perfect.
It was just loud.
Yeah. It was just, I didn't need them to be that loud. No. It was a fun convo, but it showed, it confirmed what I thought, Tyler, is that he probably gets asked about aliens every day, and that probably gets really old. Chandler, what is the scariest person you've ever been yelled? Like, getting yelled at as an adult by another adult is still terrifying. Chandler, what's the scariest person you've ever been like yelled at by?
I mean, maybe like a traffic road rage situation. I don't think I've really been yelled at as an adult by too many people.
Do you yell at your plants a lot? Like your plant children?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can't do that negative energy.
Yeah, you don't want to put that out there. Tyler, well, that's the thing. You guys are both pretty like mellow dudes. Tyler, have you been yelled at by, because I was thinking about this question of how many times I've been yelled at by an adult that I've truly been shaken by. And I thought of 3 examples in my adult life. But Tyler, but Tyler, tell me yours real quick.
Yeah, well, let's see. Off the dome, as a grown up, I mean, there's obviously going to be, there's cops and stuff that are going to yell at you, and then probably some road rage, some guys on the streets or whatever start yelling, and they're dealing with other issues. I think that there may be. I feel like there were probably a few times when I was I was working in the service industry.
Yeah.
Where people would start yelling about stuff, and that can be just like a very awkward, because the impetus is on you then. Like, I can't yell back. Yeah. Right. Like, I can't, like, I'm on the clock. I'm representing the company. I can't lose my job. So I just have to be, that's a very good point. So I completely understand what you're saying. That's very valid. And like, even if they're just saying they're just drunk and saying nonsense or whatever, that happened a couple of different times. Yeah.
I suppose I'm not yelled at, but I've been, people have been very rude and intoxicated while I'm DJing. Like, if you don't play what they want, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever gotten to yelling.
Yeah. The only 3 occasions where I've really been yelled at, a solid yelling at. One was by the owner of an Arby's, which me and some friends were goofing off pretty bad, and I understand why he was so enraged.
And this was not as a teen. You were in an Arby's as a grown up.
Young adult.
It's okay.
Young adult. Now we're just jazzed up, having a good time. The other was the cook at a Mongolian barbecue restaurant one time. I had jam. I had figured out a method to. Do you guys go to Mongolian barbecue ever?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Chandler, are you a fan?
I don't know if I've ever been. No.
So it's a cool setup. It's a bunch of raw food, and you get a bowl, and you put it in the bowl, and you hand it to the chef, and he's got this big like stick, and he puts it on like a big stove, and he cooks it. I figured out a way that if you reverse the order of this is a pro tip for everyone. Usually what they do is they put like noodles, vegetables. At the end of it are all your meat selections and those little sauces, right? You start at the back and you put the meats in first, and because the meats are kind of frozen, and then you start putting your sauces on there, and it starts dissolving the meat, and you just start packing it in, and you can pack it like the size of a softball. And then you just put meats and vegetables around the softball of meat, because the reason they put the meat at the end is because most people fill it with noodles and vegetables. And when they get to the meat, they just put some on top. You should have seen when this thing rolled out, when this softball of just solid meat rolled out of the bowl. And the guys, and it had frozen because all the sauces I put on there. And he's in there, and he throws it on the grill, and he starts whacking it with a stick, and it won't even break. It's so huge. He was not pleased about that, because I really held up the line. But this was not an all you can eat. This is, you get as much as one bowl. The other one was this is another, I was probably like 19 or 20. I think I was home from college. And my brother thought it would be funny if me and some friends played a concert, like a legit concert at like a club. But we didn't have a band and we didn't have any songs, and my brother doesn't know how to play any instruments. And so we went to this place, and I was playing guitar and my other buddy was playing drums. And the whole point of this was just to see how far we could go, just winging it until we just have a meltdown on stage and smash some instruments. Right. That was the plan. And it was just a
Very
weird
cool.
idea. It's just a weird idea.
Yeah,
You know,
very
we
cool.
didn't care. We
For
didn't
sure.
care. And we didn't have a bass player. So we had, again, I don't know how when you're that age, you procure a lot of weird stuff. We did have a mannequin, and we brought a mannequin on stage and put a bass guitar on him. So the mannequin was sitting in a chair with a bass guitar on his lap. And we just started playing drums and guitar. My brother started screaming. It lasted all of under a minute before the owner of the place came screaming at us, just enough time for us to smash one guitar. And he almost literally threw my brother out of there, like Uncle Phil threw DJ Jazzy, like physically pushing him out of the establishment. It couldn't have gone any better. It was a perfect night. But, you know, the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing's a feather in my
any
cap.
of those cases, did you get the chance to deploy your trademark peacemaking skills to try to turn the situations the situations around?
In the I think the closest one to being resolved was the Mongolian barbecue one, because I think he turned from frustration into respect for how I had figured out how to jam that much meat in the bowl. But no, I still don't go back to that Arby's, and I'm terrified to step foot near that venue again. So the answer is no. But all I had to say is it was a very pleasant conversation. I appreciate Neil deGrasse Tyson being a good sport and really suffering an alien question. But you got to ask, you know.
And with that being said, if any of our listeners have any fuzzy videos of extraterrestrials or their crafts, we believe you. We are on your side. We would like to take them to Neil deGrasse Tyson and just see what he has to say about that.
You
can't argue with all of you.
Yeah. Who's so smart now? Smartest man in the world. Looks like an alien to me.
Can your science explain this? Your precious skepticism? All right. Well, we do want those videos, but we got a lot to get to today. We got the hot list coming up. We've got the rest of the conversation, a little less intense conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Stick with us when we come back. Hot list.
Ey, conmigo ya no tiene break. Ey, ya no quiero este amor fake. Ey, ya no estoy pa' ti. Ya no estoy pa' ti.
You're listening to Peroyano by Bad Bunny. Beginning of the podcast, you heard The Steps. It's by Haim. Okay, time for our weekly look back at the top 5 stories of the intersection of faith and culture from the week. It's time for...
It's the hot list. The hot list. It's sizzling.
All right, number 5 this week, John Mulaney busted out some Jesus material on SNL. So John Mulaney, stand-up comedian and alumni of the SNL Writers Room, returned to Saturday Night Live this week and opened the show with about an 8-minute stand-up set, including some thoughts on what he considers to be Jesus's greatest miracle, being a guy in his 30s with 12 best friends. Here is a clip.
It is hard to make friends when you're an adult male. I think that's the greatest miracle of Jesus, truly, is that he was a 33-year-old man and he had 12 best friends. And they were not his wife's friends' husbands. And he didn't meet them a long time ago in school. He met him in his 30s. 12 best friends. Remember when your dad went fishing once? These guys went fishing every day. And they were all best friends. And he'd do magic tricks for them and they loved it.
So that was a super good set. And we talked about this a little bit on the day, and this is true. This was not like Daisy Fresh, Daisy original material to other people have made a similar, like I've been hearing jokes along these lines for most of my life.
Yeah.
about this with this kind of setup. It didn't take away from mine. I still thought it was pretty funny.
I thought he did a great job. And I saw a little pushback because we shared this video on the site and on social media. And I saw some people kind of uncomfortable with some of his jokes where it's like, and, Jesus would do magic tricks for them. And like, I understand like that's certainly like an irreverent joke, but I also think, I feel like God has a sense of humor, and he's not like attempting to like blaspheme God. He's looking at, look, man, if you really were a person in the time of Christ and he's performing miracles, it would seem like magic. I feel like God is okay with us kind of being, because I don't feel like Mulaney was poking fun at Jesus. I feel like he's poking fun at our ability to really, understand the context of God coming to earth. Like, we're going to see it in terms that we understand. And the terms we understand is, it's hard to maintain friends. That is a miracle, but obviously Jesus attracts a lot of, real thing. I felt like it was good natured and a really funny set.
And he was raised pretty religious. He went to, he got a degree in religion in college.
From a Jesuit college.
From a Jesuit college, yeah. He's been a little cagey on whether or not he's still like practicing or where he's at with all of that now. But he has a really good bit about being irritated by some of the new atheist about how he feels like they come on a little strong. So I don't think he's like antagonistic towards religion at the very least. And I don't mind. I don't think we need to be super sensitive to the framing of it was a good joke. It was a good bit. It was a good episode actually. Overall, there was a lot of really good stuff there. He knows his way around that set. He cut his teeth there, and you can just kind of wind him up and let him go on Saturday Night Live. And he even made a joke about how he wasn't there to promote. He doesn't have a movie or a set or anything coming out.
He's just there. He just showed up. Just showed up. Yeah.
Which, by the way, this is not really related, but Daniel Craig is hosting this week. Tomorrow night, Daniel Craig is going to be the host of SNL. It'd be to promote No Time to Die, the new James Bond movie, which just got bumped to November.
Yeah.
Out of concerns about coronavirus, which I think was a very responsible move for the studio to make, and I understand why they did. But what is Daniel Craig going to be doing there now? Like, does he have anything to talk about? People like Daniel Craig.
I feel like he could retire from the role of James Bond and still do late shows and just talk about James Bond, and people would be fine with it. You know what I mean?
I'm not complaining. Yeah.
I don't feel like there even needs to be a James Bond movie coming out at all for Daniel Craig just to show up to things and do James Bond material. Like, at this point, he's Bond forever, And
at this point, and I enjoyed him in Knives Out probably more than I've ever enjoyed him in and I like him as James Bond, but I thought his Southern fried detective in Knives Out was one of my favorite. It was such a weird role, such a bizarre accent, and I was on board the entire time.
Well, what's weird is he seems to really like these like Southern characters. There's a Steven Soderbergh
He's played a
movie.
Few of them. Yeah.
What's that? The heist movie called?
What is the name of that? Logan Lucky.
Yeah, Logan Lucky with Channing Tatum and Adam Driver.
Great movie.
Where he plays another kind of weird Southern character. It's almost like he just wants to play characters that are the opposite of slick James Bond. You know what I mean?
Which I get, I guess. For those characters who become known for like one character, it seems like they're always really eager to prove that they can do something else. And I get that too. Like, you want to diversify your career a little bit. And if you're tired of playing, whether it's James Bond or the like a rom-com, a lot of people get pegged as like the lead in a rom-com or a superhero. Your next thing has to be something that really pushes the other direction.
The guy who plays Elliot Stabler in Law and Order SVU, every time I've seen him in anything else, it's like the complete opposite of that character.
Yeah. And I'm sure they just put their agents on the case, like, find me something so that I don't have to be the handsome person or the villain or whatever it ends up being. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I see. If I would just lean into it. I would just be the same character in every. It's basically what like Vince Vaughn has done. Well, that's a weird day reference because I can't remember the last Vince Vaughn movie I've seen. But you know what I mean? There was a stretch in the 90s where Vince Vaughn was like a big comedy star, but he made no effort no effort to play any character except for Vince Vaughn. Like, you could have just, I mean, all they did was change his name. There was nothing different about him in that entire stretch of movies that he did in the 90s. It was the same character, just that kind of quick talking, slightly agitated bro. And he just was like, all right, write another movie around that character. And I'm just going to run this thing to the ground, which he did.
That's a good point. There's a few of those actors who are just like, if you're casting them in your movie, you're not asking them that you know exactly 100% what you're getting. Like, I'm not ever going to expect Vin Diesel to be anything anything besides Dom in Fast and Furious. That is his character. And whether he is cast in an action movie, a sci-fi movie, a horror movie, a mystery, whatever it's going to be, he's going to be Dom Toretto. That's just he's got one thing.
I would even make the case the same for even like someone who I think a lot of people would consider like a really great actor, which I'm not saying he's not, but I feel like whenever I see George Clooney in a movie, he's just being a variation of George Clooney, like a coolish guy that like it gets in kind of sticky situations but finds a way out. He's the same guy in every movie. It's just George Clooney. You know what I mean? Like you could drop him in a heist or, you know, in some sort of like precarious geopolitical situation. It doesn't matter. You can put him behind a news desk. He's just George Clooney over and over again.
Well, what about not No Country? What's the
Coen brother? Yeah, it's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's just George Clooney.
It's just like a Southern version.
Yeah,
like,
it's just a Southern version of a
like
wise
he
talking.
gets in a lot of scrapes.
It's if you put him back in a time machine and put him, at the turn of the century, escaping from jail. That's how you would expect George Clooney to act. You know what I mean? Singing and dancing and talking his way out of sticky situations. That's what he does.
But I guess when you're George Clooney, like, there's only one George Clooney, and he's a good, and George Clooney is a good character on his own.
Exactly.
Why would we ask him to be something different?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing out the fact.
I'm not complaining. No, I get it. Same way. That's okay. Number 4 this week. This is interesting. So Kendrick Lamar has announced a new company that I believe is called PG Lang. I'm not going to interrupt. Let's get into this.
No. Read it, and then I got my take. And Chandler, pay close attention because I want to hear your take on this too.
All right. So Kendrick Lamar, one of my favorite artists, one of the best artists of our generation, has announced the creation of a new company called PG Lang, which is being described as, and this is a direct quote, a new multilingual at-service company. The press release says that it is, quote, at service to creators and projects that selflessly speak with and for the shared experiences that connect us all. David Free, who has collaborated with Kendrick on several projects, said that, quote, in this overstimulated time, we are focused on cultivating raw expression from grassroots partnerships. Now, all that makes determining what exactly PG Lang is a little difficult. There is a visual mission statement on their website. It's a 4.5-minute video starring Baby Keem, Georgia Smith, and Yara Shahidi, and Kendrick himself. There's also some merch, and at this, you can find also, presumably at some point, some forthcoming details. Those aren't really there right now. You now know what we know. I looked into this yesterday a lot, and that was the extent of the site. It's called PG Lang. It's a multilingual at-service company.
Okay. A multilingual at-service ad-service or at-service?
At-service company.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. When you hear that description of sort of this word, let me preface too. Kendrick Lamar is brilliant. He's in my opinion, one of the world's great living artists. And I don't mean that. I mean that 100%, truly. That's really my belief. He's a very important, brilliant artist. But is anyone else getting, kind of the word salad of some vaguely entertainment related agency thing that's kind of based on image? Is anyone else getting Entertainment 720 Prestige Worldwide vibes from this? Like if you watch the pitch of Prestige Worldwide, security, black leather gloves, dancing, music videos, direction, filmmaking. And it's like, what is this? Or it's like, I looked up how yesterday I looked up like how Tom Haverford described Entertainment 720 on Parks and Rec, a premier high-end all media entertainment conglomerate. Like if that was in the description, for PG Lang, no one would know. No one would be like, okay, whatever. I don't know what that means, but sure, why not? Kendrick Lamar has just launched an Entertainment 720 or a Prestige Worldwide, like some very ambiguous entertainment-related agency that can't quite articulate what it is they do, who their clients are, what their customers are, or what the business model is. But it does look cool.
The visual mission statement is a short film, and it opens. Did you watch it? Did you watch it, Jesse?
A little, and then I'm like, okay, this is
opens
not
on
far.
Baby Keem is sitting in a forest and he is looking into the sun, and Yara Shahidi, a great young actress, walks up and asks why he's staring into the sun, and expresses some concern about him doing that. And he said, why wouldn't I stare? Something to the effect of, why wouldn't I stare at this huge source of energy? And she said, well, you can go blind. And he was like, have you ever heard of anybody actually going blind from staring into the sun? And she's like, that's a good point. And she sits down and stares at the sun alongside of him. So this is in the visual mission statement. I want to encourage our listeners to not stare into the sun.
Now that you say that, this business makes total sense. Just take my money. I'm investing. PG Lang. I don't even know if that's how, like, even how it's written. It's all one word, and it's lowercase p, lowercase g, uppercase L, A-N-G. Paglang?
Pickling?
Paglang? It's Paglang? Like, nothing about it. It seems like self-parody, and I hate to say that because I do love Kendrick, and maybe PG Lang or Paglang is going to do awesome stuff.
Around, right? It could turn around. Like, it could release something later today, for all we know. But we're going to look really foolish if they make another announcement today and it's got a bunch of cool new projects starring young up and coming filmmakers and entrepreneurs and gives a lot of people a shot at making their dreams come true. That's all very possible. And if so, I will be the first to eat my words and publicly apologize to Kendrick Lamar in person. We will be happy to have him on the podcast for that purpose.
That may happen, and also there may be a press conference where they explain more very ambiguous things about this business and invite reporters to jump in the back of a Hummer stretch limo with a hot tub in the back, and that would not shock me either. Like, this could go either direction here.
Cultivating raw expression in this overstimulated time, we are focused on cultivating raw expression from grassroots partnerships. I assume it's some sort of. art
I get it
thing.
now. Yeah,
There is merch on the site. There's merch on the site. There's $100 hoodie there if anyone's on the market for a new hooded sweatshirt.
For Paglang, get those new Paglang threads.
Which I'm not opposed to. So we will be on this beat. I am interested in knowing more. A piece of good news is there's some sort of song in the background of the video. It could be a new Kendrick Lamar song, a new Kendrick Lamar album.
Yeah,
maybe this is just a new album.
Maybe it's some weird commentary. I'm sort of hoping that, because the other alternative is just concerning to me.
Number 3 this week, Taylor Swift is donating $1 million to Nashville tornado relief efforts. So here in Nashville, we're still recovering from earlier this week. We had a series of tornadoes come through. Appreciate. I had a lot of listeners reach out. We talked about this on the Tuesday podcast a little bit with Carlos Whitaker, who's also here in Nashville, about some of the recovery efforts. Taylor Swift she moved here when she started off her music career. City, I think, was pretty good to her early on, and she's been really good to it ever since. She explained on Instagram, quote, "Nashville is my home, and the fact that so many people have lost their homes and so much more in Middle Tennessee is devastating to me." Her charity efforts are pretty well known, but she's particularly generous towards Music City here. The Tennessean notes that in 2012 and 2013, she gave $4 million for education at the Country Music Hall of Fame, $100,000 to the Nashville Symphony. In 2019, she gave $113,000 to the Tennessee Equality Project. so over 24 people were killed in Nashville and the surrounding counties when 2 late night tornadoes ravaged homes and businesses here in town. It's been a weird couple of days, but obviously it's you hate to focus on just the what the celebs are doing at a time like this. And I've seen a lot of on the national stage how different country music stars have responded to the tornadoes. And that feels kind of like a slight sometimes to the people who really lost everything, which a lot of people did. But it's also true that a lot of these celebrities have resources and means that a lot of other folks don't have. And the fact that somebody like Taylor Swift can leverage her considerable influence and money towards trying to help people clean up, it does mean a lot, and that's super cool.
Yeah, and Tyler, obviously you're a resident of Nashville, and I do feel like too, as someone who's been there, a number of times and just knows a lot of people who live there, who have who have ministries there, who are in the entertainment industry. It does seem like out of a lot of cities that are associated with entertainment, whether it be like a New York or an LA or, or even like an Austin or something, it does seem to be, from my experience here, and I'm kind of interested to hear yours, that people like Taylor Swift or the artists that call Nashville their home, they really seem like they're a part of the community and engage it. Like, I feel like everyone I know in Nashville has lots of stories of bumping into someone at like a Trader Joe's or something. And it's always a positive experience that a lot of Nashville artists they don't consider to just sort of be, these like celebrities that live these gated, isolated lives. A lot of them, like Taylor Swift, seem to be pretty engaged with the community there.
I think that's true, and that's what as a normie, I won't speak for the celebrity community here. I would not want to infringe upon their much maligned voices, but my understanding is that, and what it seems to be here is that it is a little easier if you are somebody with some influence, if you're a recognizable person, to get around in Nashville. And it does seem like there's a decent amount of respect for their like personal space here that you can live here in East Nashville or up there in Brentwood or Franklin and feel like you're gonna live a relatively people respect your space and will let you eat dinner out and go to the grocery store without bothering you too much. And that does make them feel a lot more part of the community than different places where, well, the rich people live over on this side of town, and which isn't to say Nashville doesn't have its own problems with gentrification, and certainly that has been a big issue that the city has faced. But it does seem like people who make it here in the music industry in particular have been very, very invested in the community. I
heard a great story from a friend of mine who's a producer, and I guess his parents moved into kind of a nice neighborhood, and there was a house at the end of the street that they didn't see a lot of people going in and out of, and they didn't really know who lived there. They would occasionally hear music playing, and they were doing like sort of a neighborhood like potluck, sort of like a block party type of situation. I don't know if you guys do that, just kind of get to know your neighbors. Sure. And they put flyers up, and they put one in this mailbox, even though they didn't know the person who lived there. They assumed that person just isn't home a lot. And the person comes to the potluck, brings like a dish and everything, comes by himself, brings a dish and everything. Everyone's hanging out. They take pictures, whole deal. And that person then shows their kid. They're like, oh, we met here's some pictures. And the person's like, Mom, that's Jack White. Jack White just can't, lives here. Just
those photos got passed around a little bit. Yeah. It's just Jack White hanging out at a party with a bunch of people who did not know who he was. I don't think he's not like, he's a very recognizable figure.
It's not like Jack White's hiding the fact that he's Jack White. He looks like a hipster vampire from the future.
He can't disguise himself. There's no disguise. He doesn't try. But even if he was going to, he couldn't disguise. And that's here in East Nashville. Casey Musgraves lived here until pretty recently. She moved out of a little further away. The Black Keys guys are here, and then obviously the numerous country music guys and some of our old friends from the CCM scene are still around here too. Keep your eyes peeled for those guys. And
I saw Michael Dubs. Michael W. Smith was volunteering.
People are pitching it, and that's really cool. And if you're somebody who lives, I know we have a lot of people who live around here in Nashville. And if you've been volunteering, I appreciate that too. Super cool to see the city come together.
As we all know, Nashville is Michael W. Smith's place in this world. Calling through the dark to find it. People just hate that now, and I'm going to keep doing it forever.
Number 2 this week, Kim Kardashian-West met with President Trump about criminal justice reform. So Kim has taken a real interest, a serious interest in criminal justice reform over the past couple of years. She went to the White House along with 3 women who had recently had their sentences commuted by the president and are now free, as well as members of the Cut 50, which is a criminal justice reform group co-founded by Van Jones. In a series of tweets, Kim explained the stories of each of the women who were subjected to extremely harsh sentences despite all 3 being nonviolent offenders. She told the story of Crystal Munoz, who was that was a particularly heartbreaking one. As Kim explained, Crystal was sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiracy to possess and distribute marijuana. She left behind a 5-month-old baby. She was pregnant. Crystal was shackled by prison guards during the birth of her second daughter. Her case was highlighted by the First Step Act, which banned the degrading and inhumane treatment of shackling female prisoners during childbirth. That First Step Act was signed into law by President Trump after Kim visited the White House to lobby for reforms back in 2018. In a tweet, Van Jones wrote, quote, "I hope President Trump keeps granting clemencies and pardons to sisters like this. Hashtag fight different." We talked about this in the day. I think we've talked about Kim on this podcast a few times, but I find that this is one of the best examples I can think of a celebrity using their platform and influence and resources for good. Because Kim has been extremely driven by this subject over the past year or so.
Yeah, Tyler, you're right. I think people have been, I mean, let's be honest, rightly skeptical of someone like, Kim Kardashian, at least initially, who's a reality TV show, who's best known for being a reality TV show star, to have like credibility when it comes to pushing through complicated criminal justice reforms legislation, right? Like I feel like people had kind of skepticism, but look, man, she brought with her 3 women who, if it wasn't for her efforts, would still be behind bars. And there is plenty to criticize about the Trump administration, and especially how they've dealt with issues that, affect, some disenfranchised communities. But I do think recognizing their willingness to embrace these reforms, even though there's way more that could be done to curb the mass incarceration process, every piece of legislation that goes to protect the human dignity of people, whether they're incarcerated or not, should be applauded. And I think there's plenty of things that Kim Kardashian has used her platform for and could use her platform for that would just further enrich her or accomplish her own goals. But she's choosing to use her time to visit the White House to tell the stories of these women who, received, if you read about their cases and the sentences they received, their stories need to be told. And she's elevating them and telling their stories. And the White House has listened and actually enacted some pretty meaningful legislation. I hope it continues.
Yeah, she's studying to pass the bar. This isn't this is more than just her kind of getting a hobby. She's using her time and energy to prepare and to study, and she knows about these cases, and she's been extremely involved and committed, not just to high profile activists, but also to people. She's brought attention to people whose names none of us knew. And so why is this person shouldn't be in jail? What's going on? I'm really glad to see that her platform is being used this way. And I think she's one of the handful of people who could really make a significant change who's in terms of how we think about celebrity, and she's at least doing her part to do that. So that's very, very cool. And I take back every bad thing I ever said about her. All right. No, never a few of those things, but I do take them back.
I think I had just approached her career with like indifference. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure. I've never seen an episode. Yeah, I don't
me
know.
neither. And it's not out of principle. I've just never had a desire to.
And I can't keep them straight. I know Kim, and then there's a lot of them, and there's others, and I have a hard time keeping them all straight. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Number one this week. This was great. Ben Affleck talked about faith and doubt with Erwin McManus. All right, so Ben Affleck's got a new movie out today. It's called The Way Back, in which he plays an alcoholic basketball coach trying to get his life back. Jesse's been very excited about it. Jesse brings this movie up a lot.
Listen,
this is your
former
lane.
high school basketball player, kind of, navigating some difficult situations, going through a midlife crisis to find redemption. Guys, with a soundtrack by Bon Iver, I told Tyler yesterday, this is my Avengers Endgame, guys. I love like corny inspirational sports movies. I love them. Okay. Ever since I first saw Rocky, they're just always fun to watch. And this one, seems to have a little bit of an edge to it. Like I said, it's kind of got the indie rock. Like Bon Iver is on the soundtrack. Heavenly Father's plays prominently in the trailer and in the marketing. This is a movie that was made to appeal to a human being like me. And I'm it just came out last night. I haven't got a chance to see it, but I definitely will see it this weekend.
All right, Ben Affleck recently visited Mosaic Church to talk about the movie with Pastor Erwin McManus, friend of the pod. Affleck also discussed his own career, his legacy, and the real life ups and downs and the role that faith has played in his life. Affleck said that church is a major part of his life. He still attends weekly with his ex-wife, Jennifer Garner, and their kids. However, he acknowledged a sometimes conflicted relationship with faith, and he struggled with doubt. This is true. It was a surprisingly vulnerable conversation. It was a lot more than sometimes you kind of feel like celebs are giving churches a little head pat with movies like this. But Ben really showed up to have a real conversation, and he did not sugarcoat what he had to say. Take a listen to this clip where he talks about his own struggles with addiction.
You don't need to ultimately be sure. You need to seek. Can you seek God? Can you look for God? And then the guy I was having this conversation with, well, I have a hard time believing in God. I don't know. Is God there? Is God not there? Just relax. Can you seek God? Can you look? I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And the more I did that, and the more I allowed it to become something that didn't have to be a final determination or me saying I have the answer or I know what's right, but just a search for a higher power, for a higher mission, for a higher meaning, for what was really important in life in the world and for a God. That started to connect me more deeply to faith. And in that, faith has served me well in recovery as an alcoholic, and has, and there is that sort of thing that the thing that sort of that I keep coming back to with faith is there is a part of us inside, like a tuning fork, we sort of know when we're on the right path. There's something that we can feel and that sort of resonates. And the idea that is, whether you want to call it God's will or God's voice or what God gives us or leaves us or, we have that.
I love the idea behind what he said there, which is, when he was having, he was talking about how he had met these different people in AA who gave him different perspectives about faith and God's will and sovereignty and things like that. And, but one of his major struggles was essentially the question of why does God allow bad things to happen? Why does he allow suffering? Why does he allow things like addiction? And that really, causes sort of, major doubts. But what he says there is, when a guy challenged him, like, what if I ask you really not to just believe, but just seek, look for truth, try to find God. And, that's all you're being asked to do is seek truth, look for it, earnestly. And it's like, man, that's such a beautiful idea that I wish more Christians would encourage people struggling with doubt to do, because part of the promise of the gospel is that it unlocks itself to people who really earnestly look for the key to understanding it. Ask and you shall receive, knock and it will be answered, seek and you will find. I feel like that idea of encouraging people to not meet doubt with answers, but meet doubt with questions is such a powerful concept because that's what we're told to do. Ask and you will receive. Not, hey, just believe some answer and you'll get it. It's like, no. You got to seek this stuff out. It's you know, like I thought that was a really profound idea.
That's super cool. And I think it's not easy for anybody to talk about doubt, to talk about their issues with addiction, to talk about the struggles they've had. Like that's not something that I don't like talking about those things. I don't think spiritual leaders, influencers like to talk about those things. Certainly somebody of Ben Affleck's level of prominence, you know, you're kind of expected to keep things pretty safe, to talk about what you know, and not to rock the boat too hard. And the fact that he's been able to discuss his issues and to give this sort of this, I think, very profound, especially for people who are seeking, who are in the midst of just trying to ask for something, for a sign. That takes a lot of humility, and that is not something that somebody in Ben Affleck's frame. We've talked a lot of celebrity talk today on the pod, but somebody in Ben Affleck's sphere of influence, humility isn't really a given for those people, right? So, but it sounds like he still has it, and certainly some circumstances in his life have cultivated that, and those haven't been easy for him. But it seems like he's in a place where I don't know if he would say this, but it seems like he's at least in a place where he's willing to accept help and guidance and being willing to look to something higher than himself, and that's a really important and beautiful place for somebody to come to. As hard as it is, as difficult as it can be to get there. So we're rooting for Ben.
Yeah,
on this podcast.
Sure.
He was a pretty good Batman.
Yeah,
he was a pretty. That's a hot take. I thought he was a fine Batman. The movie wasn't very good, but he was all right.
He's had a very interesting career, and just the trailers for this movie have really inspired me to try to pursue my lifelong dream of coaching a ragtag group of a ragtag basketball team. But instead of inspiring them to overcome adversity, I just think of cool trick plays that are outside the rules of conventional basketball. I still have done a lot of research on my local high school, like Virginia basketball rules. And I have found nothing in the rule book that prohibits me from designing a play in which one player is on another player's shoulders, creating a super player. It's a loophole in the rule book for high school basketball. I'm just going to set the kid right under the rim, get another kid on his shoulder. We toss the ball up there. It's a literal slam dunk every time. And, you know, Ben Affleck in his movie, he uses, tough life lessons to get this ragtag team, back in a winning mindset. I will use loopholes and creative problem solving, like setting those kids on there. I'm not opposed to a super player, which is 3 players on each other's shoulders. I just don't see how there's any defense for that. Unless the implications of what I want to do, because the only way to defend 3 players on each other's shoulders is by putting 3 players on the defense on each other's shoulder. So what I'm doing, this is why they want to keep me out of basketball coaching, because if I take over, they'll have no choice but to essentially change the game of basketball into one giant game of pool chicken. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you're in a swimming pool and you got them each other on the shoulders. That's what I would turn the game into. And that's why they're hesitant. That's why every school doesn't even want me as a volunteer. Okay. Message loud and clear. I think what you need is a school, though, like the one that's depicted in the way back. Yeah.
That is just on its, like, they're out of ideas. They got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And somebody there at the school, I don't know how familiar you are with people at your local institutions of education.
Listen, I've made myself very familiar. I've made myself and my dangerous ideas about the evolution of the game of basketball very, very clear to them, Tyler. They know me well.
Well, I think it's only a matter of time then. Yeah. Before they're on their last, the team is down and out. They've gone 0 and whatever for too many years now. I'm like, I know a guy. I know he's not our best choice, but there's nobody else. And what have we got to lose? What is it going to cost us?
I'm not even sure if what he's doing is against the rules. Something tells me this is a guy who follows his own set of rules. And then the inspirational music comes in, and I walk into the gym. I'm like, what are you kids looking at? You know, you're about to have your life change. You don't even know it. Now get up on his shoulders, kid. Get comfortable up there. You're going to spend a lot of time on your buddy's shoulders. We're changing the way we play the game here. I'm not out to change lives. I'm out here to change the game. Now get on his shoulders.
It could really spark a return
fantastic movie.
To the mid 90s, like Air Bud era, like nothing in the rule book says a dog can't play basketball era, but we don't even need the dog for this one. Dogs are hard to train. It's hard to film with a dog. Why not just go with
the point where I fly? Yeah, I already see the point in the movie where I fly too close to the sun. Where there's a climactic moment in the movie where like the superintendents of the schools meeting and like people that are like in the audience just like shouting, and there's like the superintendent has a gavel. And it's like, order! I demand order! There will be no more standing on the shoulders. It is in the rule book now. We've closed the loophole. And the next game, I have designed a very, very long basketball jersey so that when I put the kid on the other kid's shoulders, it looks like a player with an enormous torso. And I'll poke little air holes where the numbers are so that the kid that's on the base can still breathe. But thankfully, I saw this coming and I ordered very, very breathable mesh for the jerseys. So my plan will still work, you know? And it's after I win the state championship that I reveal that it was just two kids on each other's shoulders with a very, very long jersey and not a freakishly long torso. It's going to be a great movie. I can't wait for people to see it.
Yeah, can't wait. Anyway. All right. Well, that will do it for
It's the hot list. The hot list. It's sizzling.
Stay tuned when we come back. The rest of our conversation with Neil Degrasse Tyson.
I wake up feeling nothing, camouflage the waving sky. I sit at my piano, wonder the wild rip by. In the lilacs drank the water, in the lilacs died. In the lilacs drank the water, marking the slow, slow, slow passing of time.
You're listening to Lilacs by Waxahachie. So Neil Degrasse Tyson is an astrophysicist. He's an author. He's the director of the Hayden Planetarium in New York City. He's the host of the new season of Cosmos. It's called Possible Worlds. Now that show is a reboot of Carl Sagan's classic series. Looks at all the big questions of science, space exploration, and technology. It is airing on Mondays on National Geographic. Jesse, you shouted with Neil this week. You two went to the mat over several important issues. No, this part of the conversation is very, I think, is very illuminating. We talked about faith and some of his thoughts about the possibility of a spiritual realm. How did the conversation go?
Yeah, I was super excited, and Cosmos is such a cool show. I have really enjoyed watching it. I loved Carl Sagan. I liked the first couple of seasons of Cosmos that they did. And I was just really impressed by, I mean, look, you're talking Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's an incredibly knowledgeable guy. But the two things that jumped out to me about the conversation was the optimism and hope he has about the future of humanity and if we're willing to embrace science and innovation, and also his willingness and real desire to have conversations with people of different opinions and views. As you'll hear, he kind of has strong opinions about people who are, kind of overly fundamentalist and not open to having conversations with the people who think differently. But overall, he's someone that really sees value in talking to people, whether they have a background in science, whether they are someone who considers themselves religious, or someone who's just curious about what the future is like. It was a great conversation, a great show. And here's part of that convo. I want to jump right in and, kind of talk about the approach that you and the team have taken this season with the idea of possible worlds and, looking back at the story of humanity, but also, what could be in store as well. Why did you guys want to take this approach this time around?
Well, I think Cosmos in all three incarnations now, 1980, 2014, 2020, a recurring theme has been hope for a future that we might be able to align or a future we can shape into something that we can all, or at least our descendants, will be proud of for we having been those who set that into motion, rather than have our descendants be embarrassed by the world that they inherit. And so Cosmos, at its most fundamental identity, is enlightening by the science it brings. It's empowering by how it reaches you once you realize that the methods and tools of science and technology have the power to shape a future that we won't just survive in, but will actually thrive in a way that can unfold harmoniously with the biosphere of which we are a part. For so long, we imagined ourselves as separate and distinct. And if you do, then it's like, it doesn't matter what we do as long as it's okay for us. And then you find out, the tree is creating oxygen that you breathe. Have you thought about that? All right. The oceans, which may have more plastic in it than living, swimming creatures today, or whenever that day arrives, that's an embarrassing day. And so what are we doing? So Cosmos has a way of stitching together our knowledge of biology, geology, chemistry, astrophysics, and technology to, like I said, enlighten you, but also compel you to see what our place is in that world and do something about it so that we can become better shepherds of tomorrow's civilization.
I think that's such an important message because there's so many contemporary anxieties when it comes to what we've done to the environment, what kind of future, the next generation and future generations will inherit. But having worked on this season of the show and kind of taking it from this approach, are you personally hopeful about humanity's ability to kind of, redeem some of the destruction that they've caused using science and creating a better world?
I have a two-part answer to that. One is I'm a realist fundamentally, and I lean optimist. I'm a realist who leans optimist. And the difference is Anne believes that we can create this future because we all finally one day realize that that's what we should do. I'm not that optimistic. Okay? Somebody's got to be that in the room, and that's her. For me, my realistic part of me says that's only going to happen if there's an economic incentive that can be brought to bear that moves people in ways that we know they've been moved before. And maybe that's not possible. Maybe there's not a good economic path to achieve the same result. And we all have to one day wake up, hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and say, this is how we've got to do this going forward. But in either case, Cosmos is deeply hopeful. Yeah. Every episode, you walk away saying, oh, wait a minute, that's even possible. And you're compelled to not just say, maybe that future will happen. You're compelled to say, I'm going to make that future happen. So you go from an observer of what could be to a participant in what will be. Yeah. And that's I would say that's part of the DNA of Cosmos.
Yeah. Well, the show does such a cool job, and from some of the press materials I've gotten able to engage with, of really projecting a hopeful future. And one of the cool things is this look at the 2039 New York World's Fair and what that could look like. What do you think that life will be like in a few decades down the road when it comes to how we engage with science and how it's going to affect our day-to-day lives?
Well, either we'll be thriving or we'll all be dead. So, just let's be clear about this. All right.
Well, let's go with the thriving.
The thriving part. The dead part is if everyone rejects science and everybody rejects all manner of all the warnings that scientists give and all the advice that's given and all the if you reject it all, then we should all just move back into the cave because that's where we're all going to be eventually. But if you see what role science has played and can continue to play in the hope that we want to turn into reality, then there's no reason why it can't be fully embraced. And the reason why 2039 is established is because if you followed the script, it's 100 years after the 1939 World's Fair, which Carl Sagan attended when he was 5. And I attended the New York World's Fair I visited the 1965 World's Fair, because that's how old I am, when I was 6. And both of those were left deep impressions in both Carl Sagan and in me on what visions of the future might be when you have a wise application of science and technology. So Anne Druyan said, well, wait a minute, if Carl experienced that and Neil experienced that, let's do that again. And so the 2039 World's Fair has the interesting challenge of imagining the world in 2039 and imagining the future world imagined by the people who are alive in 2039. So there's a double future getting invoked there. And it ended up in the last episode. It's my favorite episode of them all because it's just the right amount of dreaminess. And 2039 is not so far away.
Yeah.
I mean, 2039 is closer to us now than the year 2000 is in our past. So it was chosen to be close enough to taste it, but far enough in the future to allow you to be inventive about what kind of new technologies might be brought to bear on what that World's Fair would be and how it would think about its future.
Without giving too much away, what is one potential technology that could exist in 2039 that you're personally most excited about?
Yeah, I stopped predicting technologies back when, just to show you how bad I am at this, I'm old enough to remember Star Trek in first run back in the 1960s.
Then there's Shatner. Yeah.
Shatner, Star Trek. And they had this box where they put food in it, and seconds later it would be hot. And this was like before anyone had a microwave oven, right? And I said, wow, that's cool. Like, well, one day I want one of those. And they had, photon torpedoes and warp drives and phasers and all of this more stuff. And then the doors would open automatically when they approached them. And I said, oh, that'll never happen. How could the door know you're approaching? There's no way for it to know. What is going on here? And there I was accepting everything else in this 300 years in the future storytelling, but I was in denial that we would ever have doors that knew you were coming towards them and would open. And of course, back then, there was a person standing behind the door pulling them open. So no doors opened automatically back then. That would show up in the 70s and 80s. And so, but anyhow, so I'm not one to predict the future. But one of the things that I think we should strive towards is imagine a big device that removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. We call them carbon scrubbers is what they would be called. It removes it and then buries it. And then there's a dial, a knob. You can, if the ice age is on its way, you let a little more carbon dioxide out to heat it. So we have geoengineering on a scale that we are no longer a victim of what the atmosphere is doing. That would be kind of cool if we got to that level. And by the way, geoengineering might include our ability to tap the energy from a volcano. We could tap a keg of beer. Why not tap a volcano? Stick a spigot in the side, release some of the pressures, use the heat to generate energy to drive the city that the lava would otherwise destroy, for example. So I imagine a future. I think that's in a reachable future where we have that level of control.
Well, one of the cool thing about Cosmos and the legacy of it and the legacy of Carl Sagan is, in addition to some of these like just really cool ideas that are presented, like tapping a volcano, it also has, for a lack of a better, word to describe it, almost this it's almost a spiritual experience in a way, because you kind of see the magnitude of the universe, and it really requires viewers to do some self-reflection. And, a lot of our readers and our audience are young and also religious, but they're big fans of your work. They're big fans of this show, and they don't see science as like a threat to their faith. They think it just kind of expands their understanding from their perspective of creation. And you get a chance to travel and speak and meet a lot of people, particularly young people. Do you see that tension that maybe has existed at different points that between like science and religion fading among young people? Is that your experience as you meet a lot of people?
There's a lot in there. So let me back up to your first phrase. The word spiritual means different things to different people. Not in the old days, of course, when it was almost exclusively purely a religiously used term. Today, as you may know, there's the rise of the spiritual demographic. These are the people who would say, I'm spiritual but not religious, right? You might have heard people say that. So these are people, I think, who have retained a sense of very deep reverence for nature, a kind of respect and reverence that in modern use of the word spiritual, you would say it's spiritual. And so what's happened is the enlightened religious community recognizes the role and value of science, and science has shaped civilization. It's increased life expectancies. It's generated wealth. There's all the things that we care about in modern society has been enabled and empowered by innovations in science and technology. So among enlightened religious people, I've never seen any issues at all. The conflict arises with the subset of the religious community that happens to be really loud. So you think they're like the majority, but they're not. We're talking about the fundamentalist subset of the religious community. In the West, it would be fundamentalist Christians, but in the Middle East, it would be fundamentalist Muslims, fundamentalist Jews. They're fundamentalists of all stripes. When you're fundamentalist, there's no room in your worldview for a scientific discovery to conflict with what your holy book tells you is true. And that causes conflict. Now, that conflict need not manifest in any crazy way in a free society. In a free society, especially in the United States, we have free expression of religion. So if you want to be fundamentalist, nobody's going to stop you. Nobody's going to stop you unless you want to force your fundamentalist thinking into a science classroom. Then it's like, what are you doing? No. This is science. Make a religion class and talk about it in the religion class, because that's what it is. So now, whether there are trends, I don't know if there are trends other than the next generation is they're freely spiritual, whether or not they assign themselves to one religion or another.
It does seem like the most vocal are the most fundamentalist, but the real majority aren't reading holy books as science books. You know, the majority are reading them for a variety of spiritual reasons. And I feel like shows like Cosmos and your work really challenge people to question why they believe what they believe in a really positive way, because it seems so optimistic and not antagonistic. And I guess when you're creating a show like Cosmos, what's the creative approach to, communicating these big, complicated ideas in ways that people from different worldviews and different values and different levels of education can engage with and enjoy? That's got to be sort of a creative challenge.
Yes, and that's a brilliantly posed question. And I'm glad you even thought that, because it's a fundamental part of how we approach the material, right? At no time has anyone said of Carl Sagan, nor I think of me, maybe, unless they didn't tell it to my face, that at no time are we preachy to you. It's more, and in fact, a tagline is, come with me. We are going to go on a journey. Rather than stay in your seat, I'm at the chalkboard, and I'm going to deliver a lecture, right? No, these are not lectures. We're not talking down to you. We are on a shared journey of exploration for what the grandeur of this universe is and what the methods and tools of science have revealed about it. And now that you are there, let's see how we can harness this new insight to become better citizens and better managers of what our civilization has wrought, right? Yes, we invented cars, but then that made pollution, and then we had pollution, but then we have CO2, and so yeah, you don't want to indict everything that we've ever done, because it wasn't done with malice. It was done with hope of a better future. But sometimes there are unintended consequences, and so you address those as they arise, using the knowledge and, you hope, wisdom to do the right thing by that challenge. So it's a matter of taking a topic, not being preachy, not making you feel bad for anything you thought before, but celebrating this new understanding that we are bringing to you about how the world works. And I think that has been successful. And people from all walks of life and all ages and all demographics and all religions have embraced science, a cosmos in this way. And in ways you can't, that other documentaries don't allow you to embrace them. Yeah. That's why when you look at Cosmos, you're not thinking, I'm watching a documentary. That's not a thought you're having. In fact, I don't know that there's a word for what Cosmos is on the landscape of informational programming. But it's not off-putting, and that's very purposeful and conscious.
That was Neil Degrasse Tyson. Next up, Jesse has a suggestion for Outlaw Hero. Stay with us.
Is it possible to have opinions about political leaders, love those who disagree, walk in integrity, vote with conviction, and still care more about who God is than who the president is? Reverend Eugene Cho's new book, Thou Shalt Not Be a Jerk, is your guide to engaging in politics while staying rooted in Christ. Available now wherever books are sold.
You're listening to Outer Sunset by Taicho. All right, Jesse. It's been a little while since we revisited, since we had a little Outlaw Hero conversation, but what's going on?
Chandler, you were, I feel like you're sort of, no pun intended, my partner in crime on the Outlaw Hero segment. For people that aren't aware of this segment that we've done a couple times in the past, how would you describe our occasional segment, Outlaw Hero?
I feel like it's rad people you find on the internet who did something weird and you want to
got in trouble for it. So the first Outlaw Hero was this guy, and I actually found out he was involved in youth ministry, but he was arrested because he played a wailing guitar solo in the middle of the street on the 4th of July in a sweet American flag tank top, and much to the chagrin of the police. He was our first.
Got arrested.
He got arrested. But Chandler, the last one that you and I did was really an epic. It was, it could have been a standalone podcast episode, in my opinion, where we looked at two individuals who created this ruse that they were, they called themselves strongmen. Okay. Inspirational strongmen, even though neither of them are in great shape and we're just doing absurd exercises and basically pretending they were like their own version of the power team and talked their way onto morning news shows around the country doing absurd fitness demonstration and ended up getting sued for it. Okay. And we thought this was a huge injustice. I like to think that because of our coverage, because of the Outlaw Hero segment, that the lawsuit was dropped because it was. Yeah. So you're welcome to chop and steal as they went by. So it's been a while since we've had another Outlaw Hero segment, and it's because I got to find the right person, right? And I think I may have found him. Okay. It might be very difficult to find this person because, and that's why this is so intriguing to me, because according to the Reddit post, this crime, if you call it that, to me, this is just a smart guy doing something smart. This occurred in May of 2016. As far as I know, this gentleman is still out there. We know that this happened in the town of Derby, which is in the UK. And all I have to go by is a picture of this guy the picture appears to be taken at a nightclub. And he looks like a person that probably hangs out at a lot of nightclubs. Okay. So this was posted by someone back in 2016 on some sort of community message board. And it had a picture of this guy, and it had this in all caps, warning, : and here's what the warning is. This guy was supposed to buy our washer dryer machine for 150 pounds. He wanted to see it working first and ask if he could do a load of laundry. After he finished,
I've seen this.
After he finished, he said, "Let me go get the money," got in his car and drove away with his clean clothes. Okay.
That's
Perfect.
genius.
It's
It's literally the perfect crime because one, he didn't commit a crime. You know,
didn't do anything.
they let him do the load of laundry and then he just drove away with it.
Maybe he wasn't impressed with.
I guess it's possible that he was like that.
I don't know,
We
'cause
don't
he-
even
you know
know.
what, he didn't say that, though.
He had plausible deniability.
No, because they said, according to the story, he didn't say like, "Hey, the clothes aren't clean enough." He said, "I'm going to get the money from the car," insinuating the product worked just fine. Okay. How many times has he pulled this off? Like, does he even own a washer and dryer? Does he go to the laundromat, or does he just keep pulling this off over and over again? I have to find him.
This is great.
And figure out how he came up with this ruse and how many times it's pulled off. It's like,
because this is not a one time. You don't just do that. Like, get this idea. This wasn't the first time he did this.
It's too good of an idea.
It's
Going
too
to
good
the
of an idea.
laundromat is pretty expensive, so it's not a
It's
bad
true.
idea.
He's saving money.
It's a fantastic idea. All it takes is nerve. That's all it takes.
Right.
Like, it takes a lot of nerve to do something
You
like
had to
that.
be hanging out there for like an hour. too.
Yeah,
That is a while. This is a
You're in
while.
somebody's home for an hour, presumably just making small talk. I mean, what else are they doing? Like, you know, like, so you're making small talk with someone for an hour, knowing.
So how long have you had the washer dryer?
Yeah, just chopping it up about laundry, okay, for an hour while you're doing your laundry. So not only are you pulling this ruse, you're pulling it off with someone you've really gotten to know for the last hour. You're in their home. You drove to their house. You're in their laundry room just chit-chatting, and you pull this over on them. Like, I mean, you can't be too mad at the guy because, I mean, how much did he cost you? Like, I don't know, 45 cents in laundry detergent, the cost of a dryer sheet.
Possibly an hour to an hour and a half of your life. But hopefully it wasn't too awkward of a conversation. Or maybe he just is like, I'm going to drop this in and then maybe he ran errands. This could have been.
Yeah, he could have. I'll be back for laundry, you know, like.
I gotta go check out a TV on the other side of town, and it's just catching the good place really fast.
I'm genuinely curious. Like, I have a friend of mine who said he went to like the same like Dick's Sporting Goods store on 2 different occasions and saw the same guy there legit working out, like going from machine to machine that was on display, like the ones that have like pins and weights and stuff. And the guy was legit, not just like testing the equipment to see like, oh, I might buy this lat pull down machine. No. He's like in there getting full on workouts. And he said that he went to that Dick's twice and saw the guy getting free workouts. When you think about it, a Dick's, it's not that different than a Planet Fitness. It's just that equipment, it happens to be for sale. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy's pulling off maneuvers like that all over the place. That's why I need to find him. We're all out here playing checkers, and my friend out here is playing chess. And I got to meet him. He's an outlaw hero.
As always, feel free to recommend your own candidates for Outlaw Hero for our very semi-regular segment here on the Roller
that we've
podcast.
done twice. Yeah.
Well, hey, I think it's going to wrap it up. And many thanks, seriously, to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Thank you, sir, for being such a good sport and for being willing to entertain our questions, which were all very serious, and you raised some very valid points about the existence of extraterrestrials.
Yeah, point
here
taken.
in our
and definitely check out Cosmos. It's a killer series if you're interested in science and technology. Yeah, and it debuts Monday night on National Geographic.
Check it out. Also, hey, as long as you're on the Apple Podcast page, Relevant Daily is there. That's where we bring you the top 3 stories every Monday through Friday at the intersection of faith and culture. Check that out to stay on top of everything. You'll probably even get a little bit ahead of us sometimes here on this podcast. We cover some of those stories in advance and then marinate on them and come back to them here for the Mothership podcast. I would love to see you all over there as well. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up. I'm Tyler Huckabee.
Chandler String.
I'm Jesse Carey.
Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you Tuesday.
Every day I wake up and I make money for myself. And though we share bedroom the bed, I don't need your help. Do you understand? You understand, baby.
Thank you for listening to the Relevant Podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. Check out other shows from the Relevant Podcast Network in the podcast section at relevantmagazine.com. And while you're there, browse exclusive podcast merchandise at our online store. Make sure to subscribe to Relevant Magazine. Info is available at relevantmagazine.com/subscribe.
Up again. And if you go left and I go right, hey, maybe that's just life.
As we all know, Nashville is Michael W. Smith's place in this world.
Relevant Podcast Network.